Hello and welcome to week 2 of Media Evolution, and we are talking about chapter 4 and chapter 5. So let's dig into chapter 4. So chapter 4, the name of the chapter is called The Media Business Conglomerates in Control. And I will tell you, when I was a kid living in Pittsburgh, growing up, this is how old I am, there were 3 television stations and 2 newspapers, and that was pretty much primarily where people got their news and information. And I think you guys would agree that today there is way more places to get information and news. Would you agree with that? I would. So here's the deal. You would think with all these different places to get information and news, we would be more informed. But it turns out there's a lot of crap information out there. And then the big thing is that a lot of these media companies, which is pretty much what this chapter kind of focuses on, but pretty much these media companies have ownership in everything. So although there are, I don't even know how many channels on cable, 100 maybe, 150. There's about 6 companies that own all of those cable stations. And now, the cable company is owned by the same company that owns 6 of those, or that owns 200 of those stations, and the newspapers and the magazines. So obviously when one company controls a lot of information, it can be kind of a dangerous thing. The other thing is that a lot of times when people like Jeff Bezos buy the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos has other interests besides just keeping consumers informed. And he can't help it. He's a millionaire who owns Amazon. So if Amazon's doing something horrible, do you think that the Washington Post is going to report on it? Probably not, because it would be against their best interest to do that. So these are just things to keep in mind. Know your sources. Know who owns what. It's shocking when you really dig in. And the last thing this chapter talks about is net neutrality. And let me tell you, I look so big when I get really close to the camera. But let me just tell you that if you're a youngin' and not old like me, you should be horrified that the net is not neutral. And you need to read a little bit more about what that means, but I will tell you that it could have an impact in how accessible some media sites are or some news sites are, depending on who your internet provider is. Okay, chapter 5 talks about journalism. And as many of you guys might know, and let's see, what's the name of that chapter? Journalism, occupation or skill set? So I don't know if many of you know this, but I spent a large majority of my time when I was in broadcast TV, not all of it, but a large portion in news. And so I will tell you that I have a great respect for local journalists. And the reason why is because they're doing a hard job keeping us informed. I know people like to demonize them, but it is the journalists who really kind of keep check of local government. And they do a hard job. They don't get paid a ton of money, and they do it because they love it. It gets in your blood, and you're a journalist. Sorry if you don't agree with me. Let's see. Rutherford County is what we in the news business term a news desert, because there really isn't a news station that's holding Rutherford County accountable. The Daily Courier, which only I think publishes now 2 days a week, they're not doing a great job of holding the government accountable. So it's not really working great in our community. The last thing I'll say, that it doesn't talk a lot about this in this chapter, but we used to teach a class called Law and Ethics. We got rid of it because we were supposed to shrink our program. So we're going to talk a little bit about ethical concerns for journalists in this class. And so I'm going to throw at you one of the ethic cases that we looked at from the LA Times. So there was a journalist and a photog who were doing an expose on the drug problem in LA and basically the drug culture and who it affects and how these different people are affected. And the one of the people that they were following was a woman, and they kind of immersed themselves in this, which means that they spent weeks living with these people who were bad on drugs. One of the women had a 2-year-old toddler. And so while the journalist and the photog were there, you know, they're there to document. They're really, I mean, it's hard to believe today, but really a journalist's job is to report the news, not be a part of it. They're not supposed to interfere. So here was the ethical dilemma that they faced. While there, they knew that the woman, the mother of this 2-year-old, was HIV positive. And they witnessed her sharing her toothbrush with her toddler. They witnessed her leaving her 2-year-old unattended on a urine-soaked mattress. And at one point, they witnessed the 2-year-old about to stick a metal fork into an outlet. So the ethical question for you, if you were that journalist, would you intervene? And if you do intervene, does that affect the story? And this is a true story, and I will share with you at the beginning of the next video for next week what actually happened and the decisions that that journalist and photog made. So I am going to now turn it over to the professor who will go over your assignments for this week. Let's see, this week you have the media conglomerates assignment. Pick 2 of the major conglomerates included in this chapter, and they're listed below. And then list 5 prominent media outlet companies or products that each one of your 2 selected conglomerates owns. The other assignment is a reporter forum. So you only have to do one of these 3 options. Option 1, you can read something on the teleprompter. That's going to require being in the studio and using the teleprompter. Option 2, you can do a reporter stand-up, and if you don't understand what that is, I have more information in the forum about that. And number 3, you can use your phone, or if you want to borrow a Zoom recorder, and go ahead and hit the streets and interview someone about current events. So, for example, you might go out and talk to someone about, I don't know, the storms in Indiana, and does it bring back any memories of Hurricane Helene? Because I think they're now on day 9 of having no electricity. Or, trying to think of other, you might talk to someone about the schools situation here in Rutherford County. You know, they are thinking about closing one of the schools, and I think it's probably East, and then combining them and maybe find out what people think about that. And all these options, so you only have to do one. It shouldn't be more than, say, a minute or 2. These do not need to be long. It could be 30 seconds if you choose to do the reporter stand-up. Okay, see you next week.